The earth has been shaking in Israel, for now quite gently, but soon experts warn Israel may experience a powerful quake that the country is not prepared for. The last severe earthquake here took place in 1927, with the epicenter in Jericho, and the one before was in the Galilee, 1837. It was centered close to the city of Safad. Both of them caused great damage. Last month, Israel launched an alert system called QUAKE that is meant to give the population an alert seconds before a quake is expected once seismic activity is detected.
What we have right now is really giving an alert to the general public. What could be done with the QUAKE system is that all the big facilities, big infrastructure companies, like the electricity, gas turbines, trains, planes like Natbag, all these companies in a way would use our system and to take their decisions and their risk assessment of how to generate their alerts to their customers. We built the system thinking that, or from understanding the history, that earthquakes on the Dead Sea Fault, okay, along the border between us and Jordan, is probably the main threat.
But experts from the INSS Research Institute at Tel Aviv University are concerned. In a paper they published yesterday, they say there is much more that should be done so that Israel is prepared and can save lives in case of a major earthquake. Dr. Ariel Heimann, a geologist, is one of the co-writers of the paper, and he joins us now. Thank you very much for being with us, Dr. Heimann.
Thank you.
What sort of other measures should Israel take, regardless of QUAKE, in order to be better prepared for a possible large quake?
First of all, we have to understand a sentence that I'm using in the last 20 years, that a major earthquake in Israel, a major and destructive earthquake in Israel is not a question of if, it's only a question of when. And when a country knows something like that, it should prepare. And preparedness is mainly built properly, because as we all know, what kills you in an earthquake is not the earthquake, not the shaking. What kills you are the buildings. And in order for you to be protected, you have to live in a proper house, and the kids should go to school, to a school that was built properly. And in Israel, we know that there are more than 400,000 apartments which were built before 1980, when the code was first established, and the buildings are built now according to it. And mainly in cities which are along the Dead Sea Transform, for example, Beit Shean, Tveri, Tiberias, Eilat, Kiryat Shmona. All of those cities were built mainly before the 80s, last century, and the buildings are not were not built properly. And the government should do much more in order to reconstruct and strengthen those buildings.
What's being done elsewhere in the world other than strengthening these structures or rebuilding them?
For example, something that I saw by myself in California, you can build a hospital on springs. That in a case of earthquake, the whole building will shake together with the ground, and the building will not collapse. This could be done not in a private apartment. That must be done in hospitals, schools, governmental infrastructures, and these kind of buildings. And that's something that a private one, cannot do by himself. That's something that should be done by the government.
We've seen some seismic activity. Yeah. I do want to move on and ask you, we've seen some seismic activity here in Israel recently, mild quakes, 3.5 in the Richter scale, 3.1, etc., mostly in the Beit Shean area with their epicenter in Syria or in that area or in Jordan. But I do want to ask you about our contribution to those movements. We often talk about global warming and climate change and how storms, for example, are or the at least the scale of storms and the pace of storms are somewhat come as an effect of global warming and climate change. Is it the same with the movement of the Earth? What is the part that we have to play, or is it just movements deep within that human action has nothing to do with it?
Human action has nothing to do with earthquake. It's too big. It's not like the climate change that we, the people, are doing a lot. Our activity changed the climate. In earthquake, we cannot do anything. The power of an earthquake, it's much more than anything that we can do by ourselves. It's definitely much bigger than any nuclear bomb that you can imagine. So that's not the case. We cannot do anything, neither to make them to occur or to prevent them. It's much beyond our forces. So that means that the only thing that we can do is being prepared for it. It will come. It's not a question of if, and it's just a question of when. And we can do a lot. And we can do, you and me can prepare our house to be protected or when the earthquake will come. For example, just have it transistors on battery because the connection will not work. Store some food, store some water. There is a lot to be done, and the government, beside not working on the buildings, the government also do not work with the people in order for them to be ready. It's something like, I feel that something it's beyond, they think, the government think that it's beyond our understanding or beyond their understanding.
Yeah.
But I believe that a lot should and must be done, and as soon as possible, because it will come.
It takes time, as we know. This alert system was supposed to be built back in 2007 already. It took almost 15 years for it to be built, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah,
so
you know,
the government takes its time.
The TUA system, it's very good, and as you said, I suggested it in 2007, and fortunately, nothing happened between then and now. But the TUA, as Itai Cruzon, Dr. Cruzon explained earlier, can give you a few seconds, and you can run out of your house if you live on the first floor. But there is a lot that could be done by the government. Again, make a different system to close up immediately after an earthquake. For example, you can tell an airplane not to land.